Good afternoon and welcome to TbD episode 2. With us, we have Daniel Dean, who is the co-founder of Dartech LLC, and myself, Michael Reese, the other co-founder of Dartech LLC, just an MSP based out of Orlando, Florida. Today, we're going through local AI revolution, tech news, as well as new hardware that's come up and running local AI models. So with that, we're going to dive right in. So starting off, we have Google's June Android patch with 124 vulnerabilities coming out. So the major vulnerability in this week's update is an integer overflow, which allows local privilege escalation. So definitely something that needs to be addressed. Go through, update your phone, but there you go.
Question: If I have a Pixel, do I have to do this update?
Yes, every Google Pixel, any kind of Android phone should have to do the update.
And just go to my app store, or do I just go to a random website and click on vulnerabilities?
You want to go find the website that says download more RAM. If you can do that, then you're all set. No, what you want to do is go underneath your its settings, and I believe it's software update directly underneath settings, although I believe it could be different per device. So
Excellent. And this doesn't apply to iPhone?
this does not apply to iPhone. This is strictly just for Google's Android devices. Although, I mean, that could change in the future because we just talked about last week here that Apple is going to be integrating Gemini into iOS devices, although they are technically doing that through a private relay back at the Apple data center, which is going to introduce some latency, but looks like it's a positive thing. So something could come down the pipeline later on in terms of Apple, but for right now, this is strictly Android devices.
So if you've got an Android, you need to go to your app store and patch that thing right away. It's pretty critical vulnerabilities there. And awesome.
Yep. After that, we have Windows Secure Boot Certificate expiration. So back when Windows 11 kind of first came out, there was a certificate that was installed on every single Windows 11 machine that was set to expire in June of 2026. We are in June of 2026, which means that by the end of this month, you could have a boot issue in terms of trying to power on your PC and log into your machine itself. Now, for most people, this shouldn't be a big deal. Microsoft has already come out and push the certificate through Microsoft Windows updates. So you should be able just to go ahead and run Windows updates and it will automatically update your certificate. For any kind of sysadmin, IT admin out there, if you are running virtual machines, for whatever reason, it seems as though you may need to manually patch those certificates, which means that you have to go directly to the Microsoft Store and grab the certificates, go to the machine, and install them manually. So just double check your machine, go to your virtual machine and go check the certificate store and just verify that you are fully up to date. Otherwise, you may have some issues getting your Windows virtual machine to start back up.
Good call. So the average end user running Windows 11 and already getting automatic updates can pretty much ignore this one for the most part. But if you're an IT shop that's got maybe an ATM or some weird device that can't get Windows updates for some reason or is isolated, you may want to look into this, or that machine may not boot come later this month.
Yep. And for any Windows users that are at home and they want to just make extra sure that they are not going to have this issue, just go to settings. You're going to go to system, about, and then check for updates. Once you go to check for updates, you should be all set.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. So meat and potatoes of this podcast right now. So we're looking at the Vercel breach that just came out. So essentially there's a Vercel employee who is using an AI tool, as almost all of us do at this day and age. And the AI tool came over from context.ai. So context.ai, one of those employees actually had malware installed in their machine. And because the Vercel employee had allowed all in the OAuth application permissions, this malware was actually able to use those permissions and migrate from, migrate from the context.ai machine over to Vercel. And right now, it looks like there was a huge database breach. The database access key is currently being sold online on breach forums for $2 million. So if you're interested in that database, there you go. Also, just goes to show whenever you are utilizing some kind of tool, whether it's artificial intelligence or any kind of application out there, first of all, vet the company that you are looking to integrate with, right? Make sure that they are substantial, they're secure, they have a good track record. Um, Check and see if they've had any breaches anytime soon before you just go through and say, you know what, you have full access to do whatever you want.
Have they had any breaches, and how have they responded to those breaches? That's a key that I always look for.
Yep. Yep. Because, I mean, inevitably, I will say that Daniel and I have both been very fortunate in our career. Daniel, 20 years, me, 10 years. During our time together, we have had zero breaches. That being said, that is definitely a rare find in the industry. That is very uncommon.
I
So,
just heard you call me old on the podcast. That's not cool.
hey, man. uh,
Um,
but even still, like breaches do happen. It's whether the company had this breach and decided to bury it and minimize it as much as possible, or flat out comes out and says, "Hey, this happened. There was a mistake. We own up to it. Here's how we addressed it. This is how we're going to make sure it doesn't happen moving forward," and ensure that they stick to those kinds of policies and responses.
yep. My quick take on Vercel is really that this is another supply chain third party SaaS trust abuse attack. So we see this over and over again the last year or two. For me, the bigger question, other than Vercel just got hacked, is that the attack surface for any company is now the entire vendor ecosystem. So like every OAuth integration, every SSO connector, if it's Okta, if it's Duo, whatever it is, every analytics tool is potentially a pivot point to get access into that system. So the more of these systems you start allowing access into and you're not tracking, the more concerning it is. So that's my perspective.
I'm also going to say this. When you are going through and you're looking to integrate with an application, don't just allow all. Ensure that whatever you are looking to integrate, you are giving it only the permissions that it needs to get the job done. If you give it the spectrum, then you are going to give it access to destroy everything, right?
Yep.
So make sure you limit that as much as possible and understand your risk. Because if you're, let's just say that you have an application and you want to give it as a home user access to your photos, access to your documents, access to your whatever else, even though you're just trying to write a 3-page paper for college. Well, the problem here is, let's say something goes wrong with that piece of software, and now it can delete all your photos, documents, whatever else you gave access to unnecessarily, even though the only thing you were doing was writing that one single Word document and never used the software again. You just open yourself up to a world of destruction at that point.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
Well said.
And again, we talked about this last week. Start running your own local AI models for anyone else that's looking to use artificial intelligence. Again, not to say that there's anything wrong with, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all the big players that are out here. They do really, really good work. Artificial intelligence is going to be taking over if it already, it already is to a certain degree. But I mean, we're already seeing people losing jobs over artificial intelligence. It's greatly increasing the efficiency of many different companies integrating these tools. That being said, they're trusting somebody else to hold their confidential data at that point, assumedly. I mean, most people aren't going through and going, "Oh, this is private. I probably shouldn't put this up there." They're just, "I need to get this job done. Let's just go ahead and post it and give it to whoever." And then they'll get the job done. They'll have the full context, so there's going to be less likelihood of mistakes when that comes through. Um, but I mean, if you're looking at the healthcare sector, FinSec, any of these, we'll say, categories
Mhm.
that have lots and lots of sensitive data, we should be looking at running these AI models locally. Security and privacy, obviously, being the big concern in this one, but also token generation. I mean, you and I have both seen, token costs exceeding the overall, cost of a human to get that project done,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
insane. Yeah. I mean, The CEO of NVIDIA said, I have a $500,000 engineer, and if he's not spending $250,000 in tokens, then he's doing his job wrong. You remember hearing that from his keynote?
Yeah, that's wild.
That is a wild concept.
I mean, that's how they make money. That's how they're going to get their dollars in return. So I understand where they're coming from, but that's kind of biting them now. Look at Uber. Uber just spent their entire year's budget on AI before June even hit. Like, that's problematic. That's concerning. So I think some of these companies that jumped on board real fast, I think they're realizing, oh no, we're kind of at the mercy now of these companies. If they start doubling, tripling costs on some of this instead of running running into the red, they're gonna go charge us more so that they become profitable and we don't. So it's a pretty big risk. So, like you said, running locally accounts for that. Not to mention the security aspect.
I mean, this machine that's right back here, Daniel, you remember building this machine a long, long time ago. This is I think it was just before Coffee Lake is Skylake, right? So 7700K to 7700K, and the gold standard for graphics cards, which is the 1080 Ti, the best graphics card to ever come out.
Oh.
That being said, it's not necessarily great for modern day gaming. If you're trying to do 4K, 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second, it's not going to be able to hold up. But what it can do is run a local AI model here at the house. It can run Gwen or Gemma or DeepSeek. Any of those can run locally on that machine right there. And now I don't have to worry about putting my personal information out to one of these big four, again, Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, whoever else, to get my job done. It's all staying right here at home.
Right. Yeah. Valid point. Especially for business, I mean, this is going to become a bigger and bigger issue. So if I was a bank, a financial institution, a healthcare organization, lawyer, you name it, I would be really considering going local with this stuff. I also think there's going to be an advantage here in the near future to running locally. Beyond just latency and outages and stuff like that, and cost, I think that security piece is going to be huge. So it's exciting new world.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing right now that artificial intelligence with the latest. It was Claude that came out with. It's Mythos, correct? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Mythos coming out and announcing, hey, by the way, we found 0-day vulnerabilities for all you guys, and pretty much pointing at all the big names, and gave each one of them local access to Mythos, their own Mythos in-house, and said, hey, by the way, you need to go through and you need to go fix these things first before we can even release our product. And we're going to have to really scale back our product because we can't have the average person going through and finding these kinds of things.
Right. Yeah. So, pretty cool. Yeah. I know there's a lot of companies are doing that same idea. What comes to mind for me, and I didn't put this in the show notes, but basically what comes to mind, for me is this local idea of AI. I look at somebody like Trusted Sec, David Kennedy, who's an online presence, who I've never met in person, but seems like a chill, cool dude, and former intelligence, he started with Claude. I think he switched over to a couple different ones. I don't remember what he's writing with now, but basically created his own. They've got their own SOC SIEM that they already run internally, Trusted Sec. And now they are running their own tooling that's based on AI that basically is acting like what tools their SOC analysts want to use to track things down. So it's helping filter through all those maybe false positives, or, hey, you should really dig into this a little deeper. I think he calls it something Beacon. Looks really cool. I haven't used it yet, but sounds really interesting. I think you're going to see a lot more development along those lines where it's, hey, I've got this really specific use case. I don't have to be able to code, or even if I can code, maybe I was just a mid-tier coder. Now I'm really, really good, with this AI, these AI tools that I have for running internally. It's pretty unique experience. You can have a pretty big leg up with that. So it's pretty cool. Not to shill his product. I don't know it at all, and I don't know what it's costing, but it sounds like it's running really well inside their environment. I like the idea of that. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, agreed. And for a lot of people, especially home users, and I'm going to say myself and my wife included, there are tons of computers that are laying around, whether it's, from friends and family that upgraded their gaming PCs, or just, the old family laptop that we don't need anymore. You don't need a ton of power to start with to start running your own local model. You can run it on, just a 4-core, 16 gig of RAM machine, and you're off with you're off with a bang. It's not going to be as advanced as any of the modern models that we're seeing right now. But I mean, if you can get like an old gaming PC like I have back here, you can get up to 70 to 85% of what you're getting from the modern models today running here at the house. Everything stays secure. You have no token cost because everything is right here locally. Um, and you get to control what kind of model goes on there. I mean, there's at least 6 or 7 different models that are out there that are pretty competent and all free to use.
Yep. I think it'd be a good tutorial for us to do, to go through and set maybe one of those up on an old machine, just as an example. I'm going to be out for the next few weeks, so I know you've got some ideas for some future podcasts. Might have some future guests. I won't spoil anything. Another famous Reese might be joining us, but yeah, I think that'd be a cool tutorial for us to do, just to show, hey, it's really not that difficult, and kind of the advantages that it gives. Some of the disadvantages would be it might be a little bit slower, especially if you're running on older hardware. But again, you're not limited to those token costs, so you don't always need. For me, I don't always need a response back immediately. It's okay to, hey, I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to come back to it in 10, 15, 30 minutes. When I'm ready to jump back on this project, maybe I've got something else to do. I'm going to go eat lunch or take a break, and I'll have it work on these handful of things. You can absolutely do that. Then you can create agents, and you can have specialized agents that can do different things. It's pretty cool, the stuff that you can do with it now. So
yeah, and along with the benefit of you get to choose whichever model goes in place, you also have the downside, which is while the major players are able to immediately update all of their agents from 4.0 to 4.1 or whatever version number here out there, on your machine, you have to update it yourself. That being said, it's not a huge process. You go through, you say new agent, you go update the model. Again, not a big deal, but it is something that you have to be aware of when you're going through and setting it up. And also somewhat keeping track of, okay, what agents are out there? What is the latest news in this? And just making sure that you're staying on top of it. Can you always run older models? Sure, but you're not going to get the benefit of running, the additional logic and reasoning of the newer models as they're coming out.
Yeah, sometimes I actually prefer to run an older model. Maybe the update did, cut off some things or change some almost personality of what I'm chatting with. I don't always like that, so sometimes I want to run an older model or wait and hold off on that update for a little bit. That's okay when it comes to some of these models, as long as it's not a security update. That's fine.
Yeah,
you can also be lazy. I'm just going to raise my hand and say, as much as I know how to do some of this stuff, I still go. I'll ask my local AI agent, hey, how do I do this update? What's the right process? Maybe there's some new piece that came out that I'm unaware of that it can give me some guidance on. I'll use Unify. I've set up, I can't tell you how many wireless access points in my lifetime, hundreds, thousands of access points at this point. I still will go through, even at my home network. And I was having an issue the other day with a switch went out. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to troubleshoot a couple of things. And I sent it into my local AI agent, and it gave me back, some very good recommendations for things to check, things to look at. And some of it I knew, and some of it were some new changes. I was like, I'm not going to tweak that because I know how that works, but at least it gives you almost like an expert that's right there that knows the latest and the greatest in software, even if it's its own software, on how to update. So it's you can use that tool to update itself in a way. And I do think that's coming in the future, where you'll just it'll auto update itself based upon your preferences. So yeah, I want to be on the bleeding cutting edge, or I want it to be delayed in these updates, and it'll kind of adjust accordingly.
Yeah, agreed. I have yet to do that. I heard your awesome story about it fixing all of your, or at least the majority of your Wi-Fi issues at the house. I've had some issues at the house, even when we were starting this phone call, where you could hear me, but it was mostly jitters. And I've had the same thing when calling, my parents over in Sorrento. Hey, by the way, like I'm sitting in front of, my access point's right here. You can see the little white dish. And even still, like occasionally I get little jitters here and there where it's just breaking up. And I promise you it's not speed. We're at gigabit here. We're doing all right. So I need to go through and I need to go review my settings and have the agent take a look and see what it can do to fix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk? I know we talked a little bit about breaches and some of that stuff. Do you want to discuss the Shiny Hunters stuff that happened this week?
Oh man, Do you want to go ahead and get started on that?
Sure. Yeah, so I'll just give a quick overview. Shiny Hunters is kind of a black hat criminal hacker extortion group that formed, I think it was around 2019, 2020, something like that. Uh,
2019. Yeah.
yeah, and they do that pay or leak model. So they extort companies. If payments refuse, the stolen data just gets dumped out there, on the dark web. Pretty standard fare at this point, but they're kind of popular for that. They have recently evolved a lot and kind of combined with some other groups. We won't get into all the technical details there, but basically, instead of opportunistic hacking or highly targeted, they've now switched over to highly targeted social engineering. So think about phishing, so voice phishing. This is I think the way that Shiny Hunters really did their most recent exploit was. Yeah, here it is. They're staggering. The scale is staggering. Their biggest campaign, they stole 1.5 billion data records from 760 companies by exploiting OAuth tokens stolen by Salesforce in the SalesLoft Drift integration. So AT&T got hit twice. Ticketmaster, Google, Cisco, Qantas, Harvard, Princeton, UPenn. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. That is wild, and all
Also,
from social engineering, from vishing, which is so easy. That's like low hanging fruit these days. How many AI apps are there out there that you can pull them up pretty quickly and easily? And you need, how was it, 2 sentences, 3 sentences to get a pretty passable replication of someone's voice. So I'm speaking now. You can take my voice from this podcast and you can replicate my voice and start calling family members and start calling, maybe if I worked for IT for a company, you can start calling that company and hey, I need to get your password so that we're resetting these systems. Maybe I need your MFA code. You've spoken with me before. It sounds like me. It looks like me. That's all possible now, and that's how they're getting away with this stuff. And honestly, it takes the difficulty of hacking away, and just it's that social piece where it's like people want to help. They don't really care, about security, for the most part. They just, hey, we gotta get the job done. So Daniel called. Let's take care of it. You
yeah.
can't rely on that anymore. You have to. I took this to heart maybe 2 or 3 years ago when speaking with especially like CEOs or high value targets of these bigger organizations. If they call and request a password reset or anything related to their account, I ask them a different security question each time, and I base it upon not some prefab thing that we've written down, but some event that we've attended, something we talked about last in person, so that I know that it's them. I'll use the example of a CEO that I worked with, a couple of years ago, and we had a holiday party, and he mentioned one of his favorite board games to play with his family at that holiday party. So I was like, hey, just to confirm it's you, what's your favorite board game? And you may remember you discussed this at the holiday party. So it kind of triggers their memory of what it might be, and they can list off their top 2 or 3 board games. It's a good way to kind of verify and know, hey, I'm not talking to AI. I'm not talking to, a replica of this person. I'm talking to a real life, the person that I intended to.
Well, and that is a great way to go through and verify someone. It does require a little bit more extra work to make sure that you're keeping on top of those kinds of things. But it also doesn't necessarily have to be limited to just those kinds of interactions. It could also be, hey, what color is your desk in your office? What was the most recent thing that you worked on or talked about at the board meeting? Any of those things can all help to verify the other individual. Also, just for clarifications, you can do the voice changing thing is saying that it's possible, not granting permission here. Let's go ahead and clarify that.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And diving back to the other one, the shiny hunters here. First of all, another OAuth leak, right? That we just talked about. So we were just talking about Vercel's OAuth leak, and then they did it again. Granted, they started with vishing, but still, we're able to get OAuth tokens, and whatever OAuth had access to, they now had access to. So make sure that you are restricting those as much as physically possible. The other one they did also, I believe it was OAuth. Don't quote me on that. But they also, referencing Harvard and Princeton here, they hacked Canvas and held all of that data hostage it was multiple thousands of schools that have all used Canvas. I used Canvas when I was in college, and held the entire site for ransom. And they had every university's student IDs, student names, birthdays, lots of personally identifiable information, which is terrifying to have leaked out there. Granted, some people just go ahead and give that information over to Facebook anyway, but I mean, you want to try and keep that to a minimum as much as possible.
Yep.
So,
3.65 terabytes of data, 275 million users, and 9,000 institutions worldwide was Canvas. And to me, the timing of it was wild. They did it during the end of the school year. Wild that they got away with that. And from what I heard, they ended up paying around $10 million for the ransomware. They paid it. So that was an easy win for them. And I mean, huge bust for Canvas. That's ultimately those schools have to look at that and go, "Wow, are we going to continue?" If I were an admin for a school, I'd be looking elsewhere if we were using Canvas. Luckily, my wife was not impacted by that. Her school doesn't use Canvas, so in this instance, we were fortunate. But
yeah,
I mean, it's everywhere. It's pretty crazy.
I will say I was early on in the Canvas days. I think when I was in college, Canvas was somewhat just coming out. It was already not a great product. Maybe they've improved themselves in the almost decade it's been since I've been to college. But yeah, I'm with you. I'd be looking at other solutions, if not trying to develop something in house that we get to utilize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to jump into, since we're talking about vulnerabilities and hacking a little bit, you want to jump over to the wireless side of things?
Man. So this was super cool. So obviously Daniel and I try and stay up to date on all the latest hardware that's out there, including but not limited to, gaming accessories like keyboards, mice, whatever else. And there's a really, really cool keyboard that just came out with an 800 megahertz, 8,000 hertz, 8 megahertz polling rate to reduce latency from the time of input to receiving it on the machine, which is phenomenal technology. That is super cool. But here's why you shouldn't use it. So you can use, there's 2.4, now the most recent, 8,000 hertz, Bluetooth, and then there's the traditional wired setup.
Yep.
Daniel, of those four, which is the most secure way to input your data?
Your wired setup, 100%, no questions asked.
Why is it the wired setup? Why can't I use a 2.4 hertz or the 8,000 hertz receivers?
It's not to say that you can't use them, but I'm going to go into a little bit of a story, and you know this story because you were there. We attended DEF CON in, I think it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Been a Black Hat in DEF CON a few times. This was our together DEF CON experience, and we're standing in line, not knowing what to expect. Bunch of nerds like us, and honestly, even nerdier, maybe showered a little less than us people around. And I just love what they do. You can tell. The guy next to us, we're kind of chatting with him, and I think you had a laptop and you had your mouse out at the time. It was the latest and greatest Logitech. I think it was an MX2 or something like that. Yep, perfect. Something similar to that. And the dude brings out a fishing kit, like an actual, like you're going to the lake and you're going to catch fish. And he pops it open. He's like, "Hey, you want to see something really cool?" And we're like, "Of course, absolutely." And he starts putting together this trinket. And he's got a little PCB and he's got an antenna he's hooking up to it. And he's plugging it into his computer with this USB dongle. And he's like, "Hey, what?" He gets it all set up and it takes him a couple minutes to get the software running. We're standing in a pretty long line. We've moved a couple of spaces. And he's like, "Watch this." And he can move your mouse at this point. This is fully encrypted. Logitech's on its latest setup. This is a unified dongle. So not only, you didn't have a keyboard on you because we were traveling, but
it was a laptop.
In his laptop, but your keyboard works exactly the same way. He's like, if you hook a keyboard to this, a Logitech keyboard with its latest encryption enabled, he can still hack it. Yep, got a little device there everybody recognizes. And if it's Bluetooth, it's just as simple, if not easier. And so he's like, yeah, he could move your mouse. He can see every point you were moving your mouse. So if your keyboard's hooked to that, he can see every single keystroke that you are typing, every single one. Whether it's your username, your password, what website you're going to, any of your security questions, all of that. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's in a business setting. That can be pretty terrifying, pretty bad. He's like, if I get this big dish that I have out in my van, he said, I can go 2 or 3 miles away and I can start looking for these devices. And I can try to pinpoint an office building that I know where it's at and just start gathering data, gathering that information. That is wild. So I know we instituted about 10 years ago at this point no wireless keyboards whatsoever in financial institutions and high security places. And honestly, do the same at home. I am wired right now with my keyboard here at the house. And it's not that I love having wires everywhere, and I love necessarily, the look of it. It's that I want to be secure. I want to make sure that my data is not out there and easily hackable. So, somebody going to target me at my house? Probably not, but they could. It's possible.
Yep.
Definitely in a business, definitely something like a bank or hospital. That's absolutely a low hanging fruit, easy way. And this guy, I mean, it was $10, $15 at that time in hardware that he had. It was nothing. It wasn't expensive stuff, and it wasn't overly complicated. Now that we have AI,
way easier.
You can trick it into telling you how to do this stuff. It's pretty wild. It's pretty fun. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And again, like, we love lots of gaming equipment, and a lot of gaming equipment, specifically the keyboard that you held up, I'm also on right here in front of me. Logitech G915 gaming keyboard, fantastic keyboard. It has two major options, 2.4 gigahertz and Bluetooth. Those are the ways that it advertises for you to connect. We did verify when we purchased it that if you do not set either of those two up, you can just plug in the USB connector. It's got a micro USB adapter. Plug that directly into your USB hub, and you're off to the races. It does end up working, because if that did not work, we would not be using these keyboards today.
Yep, correct.
And going back to your other one, because we worked in fintech, fin services, it only takes, I mean, you have a whole back office full of employees, and you can do everything you can to protect your wire department. But imagine if they had a wireless keyboard inputting all the customer wire transaction numbers, their login information to the back-end wire database. There's lots of stuff that these people can grab. And it doesn't even necessarily just affect business. I mean, let's talk about the average consumer here. I mean, you're going to see a lot of people that do banking from their mobile device. That's pretty common. So you're not going to have a 2.4 gigahertz mouse and keyboard, but not everyone is like that. I mean, you look at the mom and pops, grandma, grandparents, they're probably still doing their banking either in person, or maybe they're doing it at their home desktop. In which case, they put in their username, their password. They don't know what two-factor is, and so it's just going to go ahead and let them in. And now this guy who's a mile down the street has grandma and grandpa's access to their bank account, and they can call in and say, "Hey, I'm, Jack so-and-so, and I want to transfer this money. Can you help me with that process?" And they have full access to view everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So patch your computers. Don't use wireless mice and keyboard. Wireless mice are a little easier. It's okay. I use a wireless mouse. They're going to get your clicks. They could potentially take over. You can unplug that. Like, I'm less concerned about that, but the keyboard specifically, definitely concerned with. So definitely patch your machines as quickly as possible. If you're an organization, hire a company that does that. It's not that expensive. I think we charge, it's ridiculously low per endpoint cost to do updates. I mean, it basically is the cost of our software plus a little bit of our time every month to make sure those get pushed out. It's really pretty affordable. I'm not trying to necessarily just push our product. Like, get somebody that's out there that will do updates for you if it's not us, someone. And when it comes to AI, run it locally if you can, and we'll do some tutorials in the future on how to do that.
Yeah. So if you're looking to run an AI locally, and maybe you're looking at buying your first machine, who should you be looking at? Should you be looking at ARM? Should you be looking at Intel? Should you be looking at AMD? Who are the best in the industry right now for running these artificial intelligence models?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, an old 3086, I'm just kidding. Realistically, I am still partial to Mac for that. I run Windows on a daily basis, but I do really like Mac's ARM processor. It's really, really lightweight. It's solid. I've had really good luck with them, so I have no complaints on that. But honestly, if you want to go, there's obviously a new contender. I'll let you talk about NVIDIA's latest announcement. A little spark going on, but
nice call.
Yeah, but realistically, whether it's even Intel, it's not my favorite necessarily. It hasn't been in the past, but I've had a lot of issues with AMD. You've had a lot of issues with AMD in the past, so they all have their ups and their downs. You can get into specific models. Some are much better than others. That 7700K you pointed out, I ended up selling. We built that same machine together back, it was almost 10 years ago. I sold mine 2 or 3 years ago to a buddy who just wanted a base level. He wanted to play one game. I think it was Diablo or something like that. And he wanted to play one game, and just needed a desktop. And at that time, they were pretty expensive for a new desktop. I'm like, here, I'll sell you one of my old ones. It's still rock solid. Like, I don't think you'll have any issues with it. It's been 2 years. I've heard zero complaints. I don't think he uses it that much. It's rock solid. It had like 64 gigs of RAM, 7700K processor, and a 1080 Ti. It's probably had less issues than my current build with a Ryzen 9 and 64 gigs of DDR5. So, yeah.
So that same machine has been constantly running since we built it. Originally, it was my gaming desktop that I used for a very long time, at least 6 years. After that, I turned it into my home NAS, 64 gigs of RAM. It did virtualization. I ran Windows Server on it. Eventually, moved it over to TrueNAS, and now I went ahead and custom built my own little NAS down there. And so now I have it running on that desk as a test machine with Ubuntu on it, and it is still super snappy. I love that machine. It has been rock solid. But right after the 7700Ks, the Intel series, you and I both moved over to AMD. One major reason was when we went to go purchase them, they had significantly higher core count and they were way cheaper at the time. They were the market leader when we went through to go buy the AMD. And for a long period of time, they were pretty good. I mean, they better frame rate, faster. I mean, it's a newer machine. Obviously, it's going to end up being better. But I ran into an issue where I tried to put 64 gigs in my desktop that's over here. And after like 2 years, the DIMMs just didn't work. And I'm not saying the actual RAM, because that RAM that I had in my machine, I loaned to a buddy and it was running totally fine on their machine. And
Yeah.
you and I had matching kits. And so we tried switching our DIMMs back and forth. And for whatever reason, during that period, I went from 64 gigs of RAM down to 16. The other three DIMM slots completely died out. It will not post, it will not boot, doesn't recognize them. There's only one slot that works on that motherboard in terms of RAM. So that is my huge major complaint that I've had with AMD. You also just recently had an issue with AMD, right?
Yeah, my CPU started failing just randomly 2 or 3 years. It's not like it's been mining or running hot. I run it cool, other than when gaming, which is what, once a week for 2 or 3 hours. I mean, I have a family, so um, it was disappointing for sure to see that I was getting blue screen constantly, pointed to the CPU. I also lost a stick of RAM, so after running, I think I ran 128 gigs on that build for a while, and I had to drop it down to 64 because it stopped recognizing. And then when the chip failed completely, I ended up switching motherboards, and going to a new one because I bought a replacement CPU, a Zen 4 AMD. Basically, I think it was one notch up from what I already had, and the CPU came with some bent pins already out of the box. I put in a bunch of CPUs at this point. I know what they look like. You have to be extra careful. I was able to straighten them back out, but it's still, I couldn't get that machine to run even with the new CPU, which is wild. So I'm glad in Zen 5 they have fixed that. They've gone to a pinless CPU. The pins are obviously in the motherboard at this point, and it's a lot easier to install.
Yeah.
But I've still had a few crashes with even then with the new one. So I would heavily consider ARM going forward if for 99% of use cases. I've recommended to family and friends more recently. Honestly, the MacBook Neo, MacBook Pro, MacBook Air line, very solid. If you want a desktop, I mean, Macs become affordable in recent years. That MacBook Neo, even though it's got an iPhone processor, is going to blow away most Windows laptops in that price range. And I will say most Windows laptops up to probably $1,200, $1,300. Your battery life's going to be better. Your web browsing is going to be faster. Your experience is going to be more intuitive. If you've already got an iPhone and you're in the US, that flow is very nice. Apple's got that working really well. If you've got a watch, you can unlock your device with it. There's all kinds of benefits there. That's really seamless transitioning. Not to say Apple's perfect. They still have their own qualms. I don't like how much they charge for services that you might subscribe through their devices. That's problematic in my point. They take a little too much, but all in all, I am impressed with their hardware and what they've done. I know Microsoft's got their new Surface. I know you'll talk about that here in a minute and some of that stuff, but our Surface experience has been hit or miss. Some people really like them and have had really good luck. I do think the ARM processors are better, but I'll
Yeah.
let you talk about the latest and greatest new announcement because you're more familiar with that than me.
Yeah. So just a brief 30 seconds. We both had a Microsoft Surface back. It was a Microsoft Surface 13, I want to say, something like that.
I think so.
Uh, but the problem with it is that you and I are both such heavy users of, I mean, computers just in general, that they died way too frequently. I mean, probably we would get maybe 4 hours of use out of the Surface before we had to go find a charger somewhere. And for someone like you and me who is constantly on the go, I mean, we had a bunch of different locations up and down the state that we had to take care of. And so I could never fully trust that machine to have battery life for me to go troubleshoot the server that's in, a 2 hour drive away. That's a problem. So we eventually ditched the Surfaces, and maybe they're good for other people that aren't going to be as power hungry as us. I mean, we are definitely power users in that aspect. Um, but Nvidia, who is now a $3 billion company, right up there along with,
How big?
oh, did I say 3 billion? 3 trillion, right?
There you go. Yeah, 3 trillion with a T. This is wild.
Yeah, they're right alongside Apple at this point in terms of market capital. So they are able to influence a lot of the companies that are around them to see the vision that they're going for and to push them to make changes and develop new products that can go along with what they've developed. So this came out this past week, which is the NVIDIA Spark. Super cool idea. It is essentially a 5070, and does it max out at 5070?
70 equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 5070 equivalent. But then they partnered with MediaTek to produce an SoC. If you're not familiar with MediaTek, they make a lot of system on chips, a lot for like TVs, IoT, any of that range. A couple things for computers, but mostly they're in the IoT SoC space. And so they developed this pseudo Snapdragon to put in line with the 5070 so that way it can compete up against Apple's M series chips. Very cool concept, and looking forward to seeing. Right now, Asus, Gigabyte, MSI, they have a bunch of partners out there right now that are developing new laptops that will come along with this chip involved. We don't have any official pricing right now, but the speculation is that each one of these lineups, the base lineup is going to start around the $1,700 mark. So that is not going to be a cheap chip. This is not going to be the equivalent of you buying the Mac Mini that's $600, both in terms of performance, but also, of course, cost. So for anyone who's looking to run local AI models just in their personal life, this one may not be for you. You may want to look at doing either some kind of Mac Mini, or if you are vehemently opposed to Apple products, find an old gaming computer and you'll be just fine. But for anyone that's in the business workspace, I could very easily see this Windows Spark running local AI models for each individual employee going forward. So very cool tech that's coming out.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. I am really looking forward to when that price drops down to like 1,200, 1,100, 1,000. Now we're talking like get it down to the MacBook Neo 600, and you've got some real competition going. I think maybe they'll do a mini version at some point because otherwise Mac's going to destroy them on that lower end, especially laptop section. And honestly, Mac Mini. We both. I don't have a Neo, but we have a Mac Mini. Thing's rock solid. M4 processor. Love that thing. I mean, it is just low power draw, quiet, and it just runs fast. It's a good little machine.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive.
I ended up buying this machine about a year ago to use as like a home media server, store all my iCloud photos and other things to be accessible for both me and my wife to use. And then since I've had it, OpenClaw ended up coming out, and OpenClaw is a super cool product. Do not trust it. Super cool product. I'm going to say the same thing about that as I am the OAuth tokens. Don't give it access to anything you don't want it to destroy. So I gave it access to. It has a specific folder that it could work in. I gave it a file share that it could access on my home NAS over here, and I could just upload and download all the documents to it, and then I could just shoot it. I had it integrated with WhatsApp, and I would just shoot it a WhatsApp message and either drag the file in there or just drop it on the NAS and say, "Hey, I need you to go work on this." One of which is that you and I went to a conference that happened to have several lectures, a lot of which I wanted to retain that information. And so I would do audio transcriptions of here's the lecture of what's going on. And then I would send it over to my OpenClaw agent and have it go through and summarize it and then put it off to the side for me to review later. Again, great use case scenario. The problem with it was that going through and utilizing this, while it didn't take much in terms of resources on the Mac Mini, it took a lot of my resources. It was very expensive. By the end of the conference, which was 4 days, I had spent well over $100 having it go through, summarize transcripts. I did give it a full audio file for it to go through and do the transcription for me. So, I mean, that partly on me, and I probably didn't have it optimized as much as I could have. That being said, still very expensive to run OpenClaw because it was running. I was using both Grok, ChatGPT, and Claude. I gave it 3 different types of tokens. That being said, there's another company out there, Olama, which I believe we've talked about before, where you can run a lot of these local models and tie that into OpenClaw if that's something that you're really interested in.
Yep.
But
it was a learning experience, and shout out to that conference, Zero Trust World. That was awesome. I enjoyed that conference. I thought it was good. We had a good time. Unfortunately, we're not a big enough MSP to be a major reseller right now, but I still think they have pretty rock solid software, and that is a good way to lock down some of your, your endpoints if you're a business. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Plug for the free plug since we don't get anything for it.
Yeah. But if you are interested in ThreatLocker, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to assist you with getting set up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover on today's podcast. Do you have anything else that you want to finish out with?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, it's a good episode. So if we do you want to recap, do a little quick summary?
Sure.
You want me to?
First of all, restrict your authentication. Make sure it only has access to things that you want it to have access to. Artificial intelligence, any of the major models, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, I don't care who you trust, don't trust them. Never put in any kind of personal information. Do not put any kind of business sensitive information in there. And if you do have something that you want AI to take a look at, run the model locally. There's hardware laying around, I guarantee, in either your workspace or your house that you could go through and set up these different products on and have it be a relay for whatever needs that you may have. Wired keyboards only. Don't use wireless. What am I missing here? Stay away from AMG.
Patch your Android.
Patch your machine. Patch your phones.
Yep.
There you go.
There you go. Good standard advice. I mean,
I'd say so.
Love it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Stay curious. Stay skeptical.
There it is. Love it.